to cut the networking short, everybody. No, this is not Ashley's voice, it's mine. I'm sorry in my cat-handed clutches for the rest of the day as our wonderful and experienced leader goes off to Miami, I believe.
Sucks to be here.
Sucks to be here. But it falls to me to introduce Emily Overton. For those of you that don't know her, long-time records management professional, leaves an impression on everybody wherever she goes, and no doubt she will continue to leave an impression on you today, as well as lots of work with the Information and Records Management Society, a partner organisation of ours.
It's stealing my slides.
In which case, if I'm to be interrupted, I will leave Emily to carry on. We're back to old-fashioned microphones, I'm afraid.
I'm a bit of a wanderer, so I think it's probably better to use the microphone than to be kind of encased in the corner. Is it still good morning or is it good afternoon yet? Good morning. We'll still go with good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Need a little bit louder than that. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Very well done. So, apparently, you're meant to be really organised when doing slides for a presentation. So I did mine at 3 o'clock this morning. For some people, apparently, that is actually amateur because there are people in the room who I know who've done RMS conference and have been doing their slides on the way down. Mention no names.
Don't look at me.
I actually even made myself yawn this morning when I wrote my title. It's one of those situations where I was meaning to speak last year at Data Protection Forum, but due to diaries couldn't make it. Yeah, when Ashley invited me to speak, I was just like, yeah, great, I'll come and speak. And he was like, the topic is Brexit. I was like, what could I possibly come up with that is really going to be of any significance? So it's taken a little while, and for any lawyers in the room, my disclaimer is that I've been on a lot of codeine recently. So if this doesn't make sense, that's the reason. So without further ado, my name is Emily Overton. I do actually have a name. To a lot of people, I'm known as RMGirl because I'm a little bit gobby online. You can find me as RMGirl UK. I've been a consultant for over a year and a half full time. My business is nearly 4 or 5 years old. I've recently taken up a partnership with Leadership Through Data, who I do records management training with. Apparently teaching people 14 hours of records management is a skill. I'm happy to take that one. I am Vice Chair for the RMS. We have a partnership with RMS. For those of you people who don't know in the room, as part of your DP Forum membership, you can attend RMS member group meetings as well, if you want to learn about records management and any other wide-ranging topics. You're more than welcome to go. Just get in contact if you have any problems registering for those events. I am actually stepping down, much to a lot of people's disappointment, but after 8.5 years of volunteering, I thought it was time to hand it over. I'm just describing that I'm a really sad person, because I'm also doing records management in university. And so my hobby, when someone said to me, what's your hobby? And I went, records management. No, what's your hobby? Records management. So yes, it was a little bit difficult. So I don't think looking fabulous is the other option. I used to work for the civil service, NHS, county council, city council. The only people I haven't worked for in that realm is the police. We'll not talk about that. And I am over a decade in. I keep on having to change these words. We were just talking about it just now. So it was like nearly a decade, over a decade. And I'm going to reach when I get to what Ralph pointed out to me earlier, is that you stop counting after you reach over 2 decades. So yes, I enthusiastically, passionately, and unapologetically speak about records management on a regular basis. I feel that it's a very important topic, which happens to be the poor cousin of data protection, because it seems to be forgotten about quite a lot. So when you guys were sorting out all your ROPAs and your information asset registers, you guys were doing records management. So I've been wandering around for the last 12 or so years telling people that this is a good thing, but unfortunately we are coming across the issue that old times gone by are starting to bite us in the bottom. Saying that very politely. And that is down to live cases. I spoke about this in previous, people remember me from, I think it's like November 2015, I think I spoke at NADPO DP Forum for the first time, thereabouts. I spoke about the forensics of records management and the root cause of records management failure being records management failures. And one of these was sewer murders. Everybody knows about sewer murders. The Bishard inquiry, everybody thought that it was, information sharing was the issue here. Actually, it wasn't information sharing. It was actually records management. They destroyed the records before they should have done. So when it actually came down to information sharing, there were no records to be shared. And that's the basis of the records management failure there. You can't share what you don't have. Another one, Jimmy Savile, look at him. He's obviously done something. You can't not say that he didn't do something. But in that situation, there are visitor books that miraculously disappeared. And there are complaints that happened that nothing ever happened of. These are all about your records, the records that ever happened. We had to wait for them to die for it to actually something to come out because of further issues. Now, I'm not saying that records management would have stopped these incidents coming and happening, but it would have probably made it a lot easier to catch him at the time had records been in place at the right point in time. News of the world, the emails that went missing, people claiming that they didn't know anything. Wonder where they went. Grenfell, where did all the complaints go that all the residents were making to the boards? What happened to those? Why was nothing actually ever happening? What about all the fire safety side of things? Records, missing. And lastly, in terms of records missing, Windrush. Some of the, I believe it's, I say some, 80,000 Windrush people were able to confirm their legal status because of the National Archives. The government shredded their right to stay documentation after 8 years. And so they were deporting people back home. There are people from Windrush who have been deported back home and have been told basically to pay £54,000 to pay for cancer care under the NHS because they cannot prove their legal status. Records missing, records not there, records not accessible. You can see the theme here that I'm coming with. So, you have your life cycle. I originally drew this. Someone made it a lot more prettier. My mum was very proud. You're just looking at various different... It's got a pointer? Yes. You're looking at various different points within the cycle. Now, this is a very linear approach to records management. It's the easiest way to explain it. So if you want to talk about the continuum, I'm more than happy to entertain you, but that's not for this talk right now. From here, you could be missing the archive clause, that when you've got rid of its active business use, didn't mean to do that, I swore it already. When they leave storage and you no longer need it for a business use or for any requirement within law, do your archives actually need it? So the National Archives, bringing them into it. So, you might be thinking, how on earth has this got to do with Brexit? This is where it gets a bit strange. What if I told you that records management could have prevented Brexit? Yeah, I know, right? I did say I was on a lot of codeine. Or at least a little less shambolic. Brace yourselves. There are a lot of memes coming. I am not sorry. I did say I was doing these at 3 a.m. this morning. And when you Google at 3 a.m. in the morning, and you take off your restricted filter, you get a lot of stuff. There was a lot of content. I really had to thin it down somewhat. This was my favourite. I've got nothing to say about that, I just thought it was hilarious and I had to put it in. So, it could be 8 or it could be 9, I can't count. In the beginning, there was a bus. The general public did not have easy accessible figures about the EU membership, and it meant that anybody could say whatever they liked and people would believe them. Believing what is printed on the side of the bus, is that the integrity of a record? It's very difficult to assess the costs and benefits of EU membership versus the cost of NHS, because nobody ever wrote that down. So it's just all recently there was a survey of perceptions of the population breakdown. It was discovered that many people vastly overestimated the amount of immigrants. I was recently at an appointment in which the lady said to me, yeah, my mates, they voted leave. They wanted to get rid of the immigrants on the North Circular. And I just looked at her. There was no words. She says, yeah, no, it's fine. I get it. Let's just move on to a more interesting topic like, oh look, the weather. Live TV. Saying stuff on live TV, guys. It's going to come. So, in this instance, Nigel Farage, he said out loud that they should have a second referendum, just to be sure. And of course, it goes in speeches, it makes records, people bring those records back up. How do you know stuff has happened? Who was saying, did it say that? I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Well, you did. You really did. These are records that are coming back to bite these politicians. You just have to look at things on Twitter and social media, but I'll come to that more in a minute. Don't forget to take your records with you. This was the negotiations in Brussels. It was meant to last 4 days. He left 3 hours after the meeting. He didn't have preparation or his records to back up, yet his colleagues came very well prepared. A records management's mistake, not having accessible records and not having the preparation, not having the things in front of you. Has anybody seen the Led by Donkeys account? It is comedy gold. So this one was seen in Newcastle, and all I would say is watch out for crowdfunding task forces practicing active records management. They are basically bringing back what you once said and using it. Not all of the things that come up on Led by Donkeys were actually tweets that were sent out, but as we know and as we've seen from Donald Trump's Twitter account, it's pretty accurate because it's from the brain. There is no filter, there is no comms between them and the Twitter. Another social media. Another one. So yes, social media, it has a lot to answer for, and the things that you should consider really are, does your organisation have a social media that you should be looking at? Should you be maintaining those records that come from your social media? Because sure as anything, if it's out in the public domain, it's going to be looked for. Not knowing what we have or why we have it. We don't know what laws we have that need to be written again, or how many. It's too big a job for anyone to do right now. When they were creating the laws and databases, nobody thought we ought to tag this stuff so we can find it later. So here we are with a bin full of laws and no idea where to start. Sound familiar? Welcome to records management, data protection and information security, or any other information discipline you would like to name. So yes, failure to future-proof your records is a records management failure. have a think about, there were many other cases that happened not related to Brexit, where not capturing the information has been more harm than capturing it. So when you're thinking obviously about privacy by design, that's great, but actually there's other information that you might want to consider that's not anything to do with data protection. It's actually non-data protection stuff. Information asset registers are for more than just personal data. The next one. Invisible ships. One of the good things about having records is that every organisation should have records, and it would appear that there was no acquisition of ships records in this particular instance. But it would be good due diligence to actually check that they exist. I can suggest that saying out loud on TV that you're about to raid somebody 5 days before it actually happens, here's looking at you, Liz Dedham, that it's not a good thing because people could shred their records in advance, not saying they did it honest. And obviously Facebook, what kind of relationship are we in with them? I have a friend, my flatmate. She is, her name's Anya, and she's Polish, and she was explaining to me that she's very struggling at the minute to apply for settled status. And I said, why? And she said, because I have an iPhone.
Same here.
And I was just kind of like, no, I don't get it. What? I haven't had to look into any depth into this kind of things because I'm privileged enough that I don't need to apply for it, and so I never even considered that somebody would create a platform that you require somebody to input with using a singular platform and not the most popular one that's been known around forever and is secure. I don't want to talk about that. Yeah, so she's definitely having a hard time applying for hers, and it's taking a while to work out how we're going to do it. I think she's probably just going to have to bite the bullet and use someone else's mobile, perhaps. I don't know. Buy another mobile. She's not necessarily in the luxury to have two mobiles to confirm her identity attached to the. So yes, there is an issue there with. It's my most favourite part about this. So I captured this off the internet. A new user-friendly service. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's user-friendly. So lastly, that we obviously have got to our number 8, and Rowena actually found this next slide late last night when we were talking, because she actually used to be IT based. So for IT folks out there, it's just a bit of satire there for you. And that has brought me to the end of my actual slides. I did say it's probably going to be about 8 minutes and 36 seconds, but I tend to fill these with questions or discussions around topics. I always don't want to bore people with presentation slides, so if anybody has anything to say, or if it's just deathly silence because you feel it's rubbish, that's granted. Anybody got anything to say? Hi.
Hello. You talked about Windrush, which is an excellent example of records management or records mismanagement, depending on your perspective. There are at least 3 ways you could think about that. They accidentally deleted data, they deliberately deleted